young people were even at that point having very, really difficult times finding housing. So come on inside. I'd love to show you what we have.
好摩登嘅感覺喎 ，OK。
You should just take a look. You can see the bathroom tends to be really, you know.
The size is just exactly as like just a regular one bedroom.
Very generous space.
So the big thing, and it's always an issue, right? Because we all have Christmas decorations, holiday decorations, and you have a small space. You really have to think through, what am I going to do with that surplus things that I need, like luggage and so forth. And the idea is that there's no compromise.
I love the high ceiling. It's just
And then the
really
open
nice.
area. It's very nice.
So our goal is to really not compromise on so we have things like a full-size kitchen. It feels much more the volume, and you can imagine, you can have a small table here, or you can be eating at the counter, but this is an actual really comfortable place to sit down and play with the kids or watch TV.
攞咗 building permit 之後咧，大約咧佢 average 40個禮拜咧就起好嘅，即係大約年幾咧已經可以
即刻有新屋住喎，
係有新嘅地方。大家好，溫哥華地產經紀 Joey，
我係 Maggie。
今日咧嚟到 JM 嘅達人開箱啦，好耐冇做達人開箱啦。咁咧我哋今次咧好特別嘅嘉賓嚟嘅，
係啦，同埋一個好特別嘅主題啦，因為其實大家都知道啦，溫哥華咧個利息啦高企啦，房屋嘅 pricing 又好高，
好貴。
嗱最近咧政府又批咗話𝘗𝘩𝘨𝘨 啦可以起後巷屋啦，咁溫哥華亦都不嬲有一樣嘢，所以大家其實對後巷屋咧 𝘗𝘩𝘨𝘊 house 咧係好有即係好好奇嘅，因為究竟幾多錢啦？咩樣啦，同埋係咪真係可以揾好多錢啊？可以俾屋企人住喎，老人家或者小朋友一齊住。其實而家呢個 topic 咧係好 hot 嘅，所以我哋今日咧就好開心啦，可以請到咧本地一間好出名專門起 𝘗𝘨𝘊 house 嘅公司嘅老細親自接受嘅訪問，同埋咧帶我哋去睇下佢哋西區就嚟起好嘅 project 啦。咁呢間公司咧就叫做 Smallworks， 咁咧個老細咧就係叫 Jake Fry 啦，佢係非常之忙碌，所以我哋而家咧快啲同佢 say 個 hi 先。Hi Jake.
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm really happy you could come and take a look at our house.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
So this behind you is the project, and it's almost completing, right? How many months left?
Well, we're probably about 2 weeks away from finishing up this house, so we're really close. So you get a good idea of what a finished house will look like.
Okay. Yeah, we were mentioning about your company. You mentioned like in a year you could probably build as much as 40 homes. Like, could you give us a little bit kind of background of your company and what made you wanted to build 𝘗𝘨𝘨 homes? What inspired you?
Well, it's a great question, and thanks for that. I mean, I have been a builder for my whole life. When I had moved to Vancouver, which was around a little over 20 years ago, I really felt that the city needed some alternative to its housing program. It was, even back 20 years ago, it was still a very expensive city, and young people were even at that point having very, really difficult times finding housing. And it became very apparent to me that there were places in the city where you had these rear buildings, especially around old heritage buildings.
Yeah.
And if we could do that citywide, it would really add a much more dynamic situation for people to find affordability. And so we worked very hard for a number of years working on heritage homes, but advocating for this built form. And back in 2009, we actively worked with the city, helped write the bylaw, and since then we built 400 of these homes.
Jake 嘅公司咧，即基本上係一條龍服務啦。你聽到佢同市政府嘅好好關係，所以基本上你請佢間公司去起一間 𝘗𝘨𝘊𝘊 home 咧，係由 from the design to getting the permits, from the construction, everything your company will be dealing
做晒㗎啦。咁咧，佢好似呢間屋咁樣咧，佢係一個業主啦。咁佢後面咧就 decide 話，我唔要個 garage， 我有個 laneway。然之後咧，佢就請咗 Jake 嚟起呢一間咁靚、咁特別嘅屋㗎啦。咁我哋可以入去睇下先。
Could you take us a tour inside?
I would love to show you inside. Come on. So come on inside. I'd love to show you what we have.
唔好整污糟佢塊地先啦，係啦。
嗱，頭先咧，我哋咧見到咧出邊嘅停車位啦，我哋以前咧佢話嗰啲 typical home 咧就係 laneway 咧下低咧就有 parking 嘅，我話但係而家新嗰啲起呢啲嘅 laneway 咧係唔需要有，未必一定需要有個 parking 喺入邊嘅，咁呢度咧就會可以起大好多啦個尺數。咁我哋而家睇緊一個係一個2房嘅單位
，2 bedroom，
好靚啊！呢度入邊咁。
係啊，俾我連我哋自己都好少見 laneway 嘅印象都爭好摩登嘅感覺喎。Okay, so this is a 2-bedroom home. How big is it? How many square footage?
So yeah, and this is a very typical home for us.
Yeah.
And we're looking at a 2-bedroom home, roughly about 750 square feet.
Wow.
But what's always really striking about these homes, and one thing that I really feel it's a very special quality is that, and you can see as we look around, you're at grades. You're always looking outside, and when you have big patio doors and the landscaping, what happens is you start to get a living environment that's much bigger than the square footage.
It feels much bigger than a 700. It feels like, I thought it was over 1,000. Like
with the nice Thai scene.
Yeah.
So this home is customized?
Yeah.
The customer.
For the most part at Smallworks, we had started off doing standard designs, and we're finding that we're starting to bring some standard designs back because it's quite cost effective, and with interest rates going up and so forth, people are interested in that. But the lion's share of our clients tend to be adult children who are living on their parents' property, and they have the resources because they're not paying for the land, that they can do something that's very special to them. So most of our homes tend to be custom designed.
Right，即係意思即係話佢啲小朋友，即係佢哋而家我哋啲 young couple，佢哋去買譬如一個 apartment 或者一個 townhouse，佢可能用更加少嘅 mortgage。
如果佢爹哋媽咪有間屋啊，咁可以全部啲 cash 擺晒入邊，咁咧又想俾啲錢個仔女去買間 apartment 啊，你知啦，apartment 而家咁貴，60萬邊度買到嘢，又有俾好貴嘅 fee， 咁佢就攞呢啲錢出嚟，因為佢個 starting price 係由35萬到60萬以上 customize 不等啦。佢攞啲錢出嚟起一間 laneway， 咁咧就俾佢個仔女住。佢話好多客人都係咁樣。
然之後就由啲仔女自己去供翻。
係啦，或者當個租值咁樣俾翻個爹哋媽咪咯。咁但係呢一個亦都會個物業可以 value 去升。
係因為你講緊30萬同60萬，而家喺溫哥華係。可能連一個1房都好問水，但係你咁嘅價錢起個 laneway， 你而家係一間屋仔俾你住喎，非常之夠用，同埋好靚好摩登，有好多嘢又可以自己 customize 喎。
So I think one of the most important things, even when you have a small home, is you have a really nice entrance. You know, and here we are. You walk in, you clearly have this transition where we know we have public space over there. There's going to be our kitchen and living room, and then we have the private spaces of a bathroom and bedrooms here.
Right.
And so we can certainly look through these. But I think what's really interesting and what we feel very strongly about is that, and what makes a small house really challenging, but we feel we're quite successful at it, is that you really need this space to have a purpose. You know, it's easy to build a big home and have lots of space and go, oh, I'll put this here, I'll put this here. We have to think about how people are going to use the space from the very start of the design. And so we really pride ourselves that these are very functional homes that are also very, you know, they have all the comforts of home. And often we're asked, what is small? Like, what's a small house? And for us, we always define it as a small home, you just have enough for what you need. There's nothing that's excess. Everything has a purpose, and everything is thought through how you would use it. And a kitchen table might become a writing room, or there's a nook that has a small writing room that we have sometimes. But the opportunity is that makes for a very comfortable living space that actually feels greater than this is square footage.
Right, and you have to be creative with like utilizing the space too, right? If you're an owner. Wow.
So the home we have here is as basic as we make, and the finishes are very much our standard.
This is basic only. It's already so nice.
But we should just take a look. You can see the bathroom tends to be really, you know.
The size is just exactly as like just a regular 1 bedroom.
Very generous space.
The bathroom, you didn't shrink. Bedroom, it just feels like exactly like a 2-bedroom apartment.
Exactly. And when we start to look at these bedrooms, what's really nice about the bedrooms is you have so much light.
Oh, you have so much window. I noticed that. You like a lot of lights.
Yeah, and if there's anything where we really tends to, like, if you were to ask, well, what would make a more less standard home or something that's more customized, you know, what we tend to do is we don't compromise on any of the building material, but we start to add more things like millwork. And more built in, so you might have a bookshelf that turns into a guest bed.
always customized.
Or you might have a more elaborate closet. So rather than a closet with a rod, you'd actually have a whole set of shelving.
Exactly. So this can fit easily. This can fit like a queen size bed.
Oh yes. All the rooms are meant to fit, and it's seldom, and it would only be custom that you might get like a little flex room that's just an office or a nursery.
I love this window here because when you're in bed, you can see the clouds from here. It's beautiful. It's really.
And yet, at the same time, we're at the laneway, and yet we've created a lot of privacy at the same time. Right? We look at this room. This is going to be for a young couple. This is going to be a home office for a period of time, and then it's going to be a nursery. So you can see it's small. We've put the windows here, but we've allowed it to be a bit more darker, so that if as it's being used as a nursery, then it's not being overwhelmed with so much daylight that you have to start to use curtains in the daytime.
So you're also planning ahead for the client too.
即係做 BB 房啊，或者做一個書房都，但佢已經有晒 closet， 有晒窗。
係啦，即係佢諗到，如果你係攞嚟做嘢，亦都唔需要好似啱啱嗰間房咁光猛，即係佢哋好 detail，要 plan ahead， 幫個客人諗好長。
即係佢頭先都講咗一個好 good point， 佢話我 build 咗咁細嘅地方，佢話但係咧佢個 definition 就係一定要實用咯。如果佢又細又唔實用，真係唔 OK 㗎啦，即係係啦，即係就嘥晒啲位，所以我覺得佢真係做得好好咯，佢啲設計做得好好。Oh, and then you mentioned
and so we'll just stand back and I'll show you. So the big thing, and it's always an issue, right? Because we all have Christmas decorations, holiday decorations, and you have a small space. You really have to think through, what am I going to do with that surplus things that I need, like luggage and so forth.
好似以前咧拍戲咧，我哋樓上上閣樓玩嗰啲咧，嗰個地方咁樣。
Yeah, so if we hit that light switch right there, and then we can look upstairs and we see we have a completely finished area, which is really, it would be great for kids to play hide and seek in, but more importantly, it gives us a really good sized volume of storage that would be, I'm just guessing, but I would have to think 3 or 4 times the size of the storage you'd have with a condominium, let's say.
Right. It's a lot of lockers they would have to buy to have this space, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about
man cave.
$6,000 per locker now for a condo.
Yeah.
And this is like you have the entire space up and running.
And this is how we try to utilize the space. And it's more important about how someone's going to use a space than what a space looks like sometimes, right? Like obviously we want things to be beautiful and elegant, but we have to think, how is somebody going to live here? And that's where we start our process with our clients.
Right.
So, and when we move ahead, again, we can see we have things like a full laundry in here.
A compact size嘅洗衣乾衣機啦。
And the idea is that there's no compromise.
The high ceiling is just
and then the
really
open
nice.
area is very nice.
So our goal is to really not compromise on what, so we have things like a full-size kitchen.
You have a pantry as well.
We have a pantry, we have a refrigerator, and this is the one thing, if I pride ourselves on, there's a number of things I'm really proud of, but it's the quality of our millwork that I'm,
佢手工好好啊！我頭先就因為佢咧係一個木工出身嘅，然之後咧佢好注重呢啲millwork 嘅。
Yeah, when we first started the company, we actually had, and we haven't talked about this, but we have a fairly tight building schedule, in part because these are partially prefabricated.
Right.
And for years we had a factory, and we actually did our own millwork as well. So this is something we're really, I'm quite passionate about. That's part of my background. This is all solid veneer core wood, so it's really expensive material that we make the millwork out of, because this is, often people talk about quality. Oh, this is luxurious, this is quality. I'm much more concerned with durability. I want to make a house that's going to last for the people who live there and their children.
Right.
And that's the important part to me. I mean, people build these laneway homes because they have so much equity that they can't utilize in their property. This is a way to do it. But why do it and compromise? For the small amount of money to make it really good, it's worth the investment, because then that's a real asset to the property.
係啦，佢除咗注重個間隔之外咧，佢好注重咧就係個物料嘅持久性啊，因為佢會覺得你住得喺度咧，應該係一個好長遠嘅居所嚟嘅，唔係話淨係話好 luxury， 然之後要呢樣嘢，佢想要一樣 quality 係可以用好耐，即係佢會諗，即係佢真係好細心、好 passion 去諗呢個屋咧，真係一個 home，
好似佢自己咁
係啊，佢亦都好 professional， 佢哋起得好快，佢話試過18個禮拜咧就起好一間㗎啦，即係如果去 City 合作嘅話，但係通常40個禮拜已經起好一間，我真係覺得好 amazing 啊，真係好 cute 啊，所有嘢都。
係咪自己都想搬入嚟？
係啊，唔係啊，你冇 strata photography 啊嘛，咁同埋咧佢好多嘢 customise 㗎 brand，like 𝘗𝘦𝘨𝘨啦，我哋好多大發展商用啦 ，𝘗𝘩𝘨𝘨 嘅星盤啦，然之後呢個好 cute 嘅 𝘑𝘑𝘨𝘗𝘪，is that the dishwasher?
This is our standard dishwasher.
Oh, that's so cute.
But again, so what we really want to focus on is because we have a volume builder, that we sort of have the opportunity, much like a multi-family builder who might be doing like a condominium or we have the same procurement rates. So we can buy the really good products and be able to deliver that for what like a regular builder might deliver a lower quality product for.
Right. Yeah. So what are the challenges compared to building a house to a smaller home? Is it easier to build a small home? Is it or the opposite?
I so wish it was easier to build.
Okay.
It is the challenge and the opportunity with a small home is that it is really as complicated as a large home, but we have to fit it all in a much smaller space. So heating systems, electrical units, air conditioning, if you go for air conditioning, all those have to be engineered in a much tighter space. And your tolerance to make something look good, you have to be very precise on the workmanship. You know, that's the thing with you start to get bigger and bigger homes, you know, even though there are very good builders of big homes, the quality tends to drop down because there's just so much material. But here, everything needs to be very crisp, very precise, you know, and for it to look like a quality product that it is, we have to spend that level of care. But I think all of it comes from design. And the design is how do we use the space and how do you make a small space work for a small family or even a medium-sized family? And that's where we really put our focus.
原來佢話起一間細嘅屋咧仲難過起，因為佢話所有嘢咧仲要係design 要更加 practical 啲啦，因為所有嘢都要有用啦，同埋佢一個所有櫃啊啲嘢嗰啲尺寸啊，所有嘢要更加去 precise，
更加難度更加高，因為你冇咁多空間，我都以為係咯，點知原來係仲難嘅，因為你。You have to make a good balance with design and then but also fitting in all the practical mechanical things but not losing out on like what you mentioned the practical use of the home and then just the overall design of it. I think that is quite challenging, right?
Yeah, let's take a look at your living space here.
Yeah.
It's so spacious. How many feet is this?
This will be about 12.5 feet in height. And again, this is one of the...
Lots of skylight too.
Yeah. And getting these rooms bathed in light and getting big openings really starts to allow the house to have its full size, you know. And again, that differential of a condominium, which tends to be, you know, it's restricted in height, and maybe you have a balcony, but this is the way that you can actually start to make a home, right? It feels much more the volume, and you can imagine, you can have a small table here, you know, that's, you know, or you can be eating at this counter, but this is an actual really comfortable place to sit down and play with the kids or watch TV, and it becomes that rapport. And then because we're in Vancouver and it's generally temperate, we have the whole backyard, and these big openings allow us to come in and out, and you know, you put patio furniture out there and you have another room as big as this that's accessible to you for 3/4 of the year.
我呢度咧開 party 咧都冇人投訴啊，同埋咧我會 foresee 係自己屋企人啦，同埋呢度好靜，好似自己一個 private space 咁樣啦。咁同埋我會 foresee 好多 family 會日後會更加多人會起Laneway home，因為譬如佢有小朋友啦，咁又想近啲 in-law， 咁可以幫佢即係 connect to family， 但係又有翻自己私隱，然之後有自己個空間，我覺得真係好 perfect 㗎。
係，同埋另外一批嘅客戶就係投資者咯，即係你自己有間屋，點樣去令到你間屋嘅升值啦，即係價值更加高咧？好多而家亦都會起呢啲Laneway屋，將來賣翻出去啦，有個價值啦，咁同埋出租啦，你起碼有個人幫你俾大部分嘅 mortgage 喎，係呢個係一個好好嘅一個 investment。
So it's really interesting. A few things we're talking about. You know, the finishes of the house, but it's also the infrastructure, like what goes to make this house. And so there are basic things that we really feel strongly about. We have a very good building envelope, so we have a really great performing system, so the house doesn't require a lot of energy. But just having a well-sealed house isn't enough. You have to look at how is that house going to function? How's the air conditioning going to work? How's the heating going to work? All our homes, as a standard feature, as an example, have radiant floors. And so what that allows us to do is you can keep the heat a little lower in the wintertime, because what happens is it's good for the home. The house heats up, it's like a big rock in a sauna, but the whole structure becomes warm. So when it's cold in Vancouver and it can be very damp, yeah, it's the concept of how is the house going to work. And what we tend to do is we tend to really try and think through, and what's happened out of that is that we have systems that are very effective and at the same time require little maintenance but are high performing. So we're always trying to strike that balance.
佢真係好 thoughtful，因為佢諗咧就係話佢所有嘢 design， 譬如好似呢一個係一個地熱嚟嘅，地下嗰度咧佢係 concrete 啦，咁其實佢呢個係 basic 啦，佢仲可以鋪個地板上去㗎，係啦。
So when we talk about trying to create a system where we're trying to provide the best system, but also think about how it's going to work and try and create a balance of harmony, things not being too expensive but being functional. We have a concrete floor. We use a lot of concrete floors in our houses, so it's radiant and it's very warm and comfortable, and you can put really nice rugs in it, but it doesn't prevent somebody from putting a wood floor on it. So it's always trying to find how can we make something perform as well as possible, as cost effectively as possible, and then if someone wants to add finishes to it or make it more,
flexibility is still there.
用 concrete 嘅地咧係因為佢會cost efficient 啲啊，佢呢個地熱嘅取暖啊，佢話佢會想揾個平衡點，佢就話你而家用得呢啲嘢，但係佢又想會幫你可以慳到錢啊，
係啦，即係佢又會幫客人嘅荷包着想喎，呢啲 builder 真係好少有，
好有良心啊，
係啦，即係佢話你又可以你唔想整地板平啲，咁你可以自己鋪地氈，但係亦都想鋪地板嘅人咧，亦都有咁嘅空間去俾你喎。咁我而家另一個問題啦，如果真係想起一間 Laneway home 啦 ，like if I really want to build a Laneway home now, I know the process is not that easy, but could you give us like a general rundown? What were your processes?
Sure.
If we were to call you, a client call you next day, hey
What's
Jake,
next?
I want to build a home. How does it work?
Yeah, often the process that we'll go through is people will be interested, maybe their mother's retiring or coming to visit them or live with them for a period of time, or their children have said, well, look, we need another housing situation. So those are the people that generally will call us. And then what we tend to do is we'll have a conversation, understand what their needs are, and we'll come to your house, we'll bring a few plans to show you what type of things we could build on your property, and have a discussion about what your needs are and then what we can provide. And then out of that process, if you elect to work with us as a builder, we sign a contract for us to go get you the building permit, and that process generally takes somewhere between 8 months to a year. Most of that time we're waiting for the city. It can be the longest process, although the good news is it is actually speeding up. And where if we were having this conversation a year ago, we'd say, well, if we start today, we'll be ready to build in a year. We're now saying we start today, probably 8 months.
Okay.
And that time is coming down. And then, so what we're doing over that time is we're getting the design of the house. We're understanding what the infrastructure requirements are as we negotiate with the city. And then once we resolve what the house is going to look like, we submit those plans to the city, and then we start to work with you to do the interior design work and what's going to be in the house.
That's the fun part.
Yeah, the really fun part. People bring pictures and they're like, I want it to look like Versailles, you know, or whatever they want to do. But we're there and we work through that process. We get a building permit, and what we do is we work on fixed price. So we'll tell you exactly what the house is going to cost to the penny. And so we'll have that conversation when we start. We go, well, we want a house about this size. Oh, this should cost you around, say, $580,000. But you might go through and you're like, well, I want wood floors, or I want a bigger door system, which would have impacts on the cost, or I want it to be as basic as possible, right? And we can talk about through that what that process is. But then we'll get to that, and we get the building permit, we have everything lined up ready to go, and we'll review and go, well, this is your choices, this is exactly what the building's going to cost, and we sign a contract, and then generally under 40 weeks to build a house, and that's including landscaping, and you're ready to bring in a bag of groceries.
哇！佢真係一條龍服務。其實頭先 Maggie 咧就係問緊佢個成個過程係點啦。咁如果有客人中意嘅話咧，咁佢就會帶啲 floor plan 嚟俾大家去揀啊咁樣一開始嘅時候咧，咁最緊要咧就係如果你 design 咗之後咧，你就會去 city 做一個批文啦，就係一個攞個 building permit 啦。咁以前咧 city 咧可能要1年以上，但係因為市政府咧係好想人哋 encourage 提倡呢樣嘢。所以 以咧佢話 speed up 到可能8個月左右就已經攞到 approval 㗎啦。呢段時間咧佢哋就開始喺度講屋企裏邊點樣 design 啊，點樣 customize 啊，同埋佢話佢咧嗰啲計算方法好準確嘅，即係話佢話幾錢就係幾錢㗎啦，即係 down to the penny 咁去幫你計嘅，
好透明，
係啦，好透明嘅。咁攞咗 building permit 之後咧，大約咧佢 average 40個禮拜咧就起好嘅，即係大約年幾咧已經可以
即刻有新屋住喎，
係有新嘅地方。
咁而家政府 now that the city of Burnaby, everybody knows that recently they have allowed now for the Laneway homes. How is it impacting your business? I think positively for sure.
Oh yeah, we're starting to really start to, we're reaching out to people in Burnaby. We already have a few contracts to start those projects.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing. Burnaby, their Laneway homes are much bigger. They're almost twice as big as what they allow in Vancouver. Vancouver has recently changed their bylaws, so they're going to be harmonized now. So, and a lot like this, where we built a home that's roughly 780 square feet, we'd probably be able to build a home closer to 1,200 square feet.
Wow.
So I would say that's more the change that we've seen. And then the company is expanding because the province is expanding. So we're also, now that there are more places well, certainly Vancouver right now, but now there's going to be more places across the province where we can start to build 3 or 4 or 5 units on a property. That's very much in keeping with our value set in the company. For us, what we're trying to do is focus on the single family lot and how we can build the most effective structures for families to be able to either be able to service what their family needs are, or what their overall family needs. So, it may be, well, we'll have 2 children, but we're going to build 4 units and sell 2, and then that will pay for the whole project. Those sort of ideas. That tends to be really what we focus on as a value, is how do we work with families? How do we get the best value out of our property, and while making really humane, beautiful homes?
Right. Now that you touched on that, what are you seeing of the future of Laneway homes? Where is it going to take us?
Well, I think that there's 2 things. Specifically, the Laneway home is a really important part of the housing spectrum, because even if you don't redevelop your property, we firmly believe that we'll start to see Laneway homes be able to be strata titled in the next few years. And so when that happens, obviously that's a great revenue. Whether it's the situations we see now are, you might have somebody who retires and they build a Laneway home and then they rent out their house, and it really makes a big impact on their fixed income. Or we see, as we discussed, children of people who own the property moving here because it offers them an housing opportunity they wouldn't otherwise have. They're close to schools that they may have gone to as a child themselves. Once we start to see that come on the market as units that people can procure, then it becomes a wonderful tool for families when they're looking at estate planning. It also becomes very easy to finance a project. If you look at a house and redeveloping this into 3 or 4 units, you're looking at a couple of $1 million to undertake that. If you look at, I want to build a Laneway house and sell it, it's so easy to finance, and it's almost immediately cost positive in a very short period of time. So even if you did have to lend money, that money, it might be 6 months and you're already realizing a profit from that money. There's no guarantee that it's going to happen right now. We know it's going to happen with these multi-units in the single lot, but the indications are that will, at one point, it just seems like an inevitable necessity that will come to pass.
Seems like it's going to mass produce Laneway homes. You're going to be very, very busy.
We're busy now. We're ready. We're gearing up right now to be able to meet that demand, and we're doing lots of work to do that.
But you're also facing a lot of challenges, like in the real estate industry, mortgage cost, labor shortages, construction costs, everything skyrocketing. How are you managing or balancing that?
Well, I think it's a matter of really taking that information you've talked about, and we've worked with our management team to how do we address that. So a lot of our construction practices are promoted insofar as that we actually have that construction team to do that as not contracted people but employees. So we've increased our employee base in-house. So we're able to deal with a lot of volume and control that line of production and procurement because we have that ability of having it. We have enough work that we can really have good procurement practices. We have enough work we can keep an employee base active and self-control and self-promote that way. And then around financing, we're actively negotiating with credit unions and banks so we can actually help facilitate a client as they're looking for financing. So we're trying to do the whole package, and that's really, that's the the real gem of having these smaller projects is that they're not so elaborate that they can't be, conceived and executed with a kind of a quantifiable, relatively small amount of money, but it needs that kind of laser focus on what those specific demands are of those type of projects and that expertise that we offer to create a surety for both financiers and then of course the end users.
咁我啱啱 Jake 都講咗好多，會知道 Laneway House 咧同政府，即係呢個係一個
密切嘅關係。
密切關係，同埋咧相信將來都會更加多 Laneway Home，因為好多原因啦，因為房屋價高啦 ，mortgage cost 啦，同埋因為太多人真係買唔起屋住，亦都未必個個都想租嘅，咁所以相信佢都會覺得只會見到更加多嘅 Laneway Home 不停喺度起，咁我亦都問到佢話，其實而家啲建築材料又高啊，咁同埋政府亦都講咗，係啦，人工人係唔夠，咁佢點樣去面對呢一啲咁嘅困難呢？咁佢都話佢嘅好彩就係佢嘅建築團隊啦，全部都係 in-house 嘅，即係佢唔係 contract 出去，咁呢一方面
唔係外判嘅，
唔係外判，咁變咗你價錢嗰度啦，又可以 control 得好多啦。咁咧佢話喺譬如貸款方面，佢哋不停都係同唔同嘅銀行啊，或者 credit union 啊去傾啊開會，所以佢所有嘢都係 very in control， 係啦，所有嘢都係計算得非常好，所以佢對未來咧係非常之有信心嘅。
我覺得咧日後會見到越嚟越多嘅 Laneway House。佢話一條街，譬如呢一間起完之後咧，隔離嗰啲 neighbor 咧個個都想起嘅，真係覺得 such a good idea。係
啦，咁同埋嗰啲大屋啊，啲老人家就變咗唔係個個都需要買樓啦。而家你可以 keep 住你小朋友喺，或者調翻轉咯，可能佢住細啲嘅屋，咁你小朋友可以住翻佢大屋，咁咪互相有個照應。即係佢嘅對呢一個 project 呢間公司嗰個。即係我聽
好有熱誠，
好有熱誠，好感動咯！即係唔係淨係話賺錢起樓咁簡單咯，係
有良心嘅。
係啦。Well, thank you so much for
a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Bring us to your 𝘊𝘩𝘨𝘨 house.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Like so proud, hearing what you mentioned about the companies. Actually very touching for us to hear from a builder like you. That mentioned like the whole. The goal and what you're trying to do for the city and
your passion.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Yeah, we all, the whole team feels that way, and it's a real reassuring thing. It makes our activities very meaningful for us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
好啦，多謝大家收睇今集宜居溫哥華，記得 CLSS comment like subscribe 同 share 咯喎，下集見，拜拜。
拜。